Hi everyone, it's your GAs from the Communication Department. My name is Will, and I'm also joined by Nerea and Philip from the Theater and Dance Department. And today we're going to be talking about the main stage play that happened February 26th through March 1st. Welcome to Austin Peay Weekly. Austin Peay State University's Department of Theater and Dance opened this weekend with the support of Center of Excellence for the Creative Arts. Present A Kid Like Jake from February 26th through March 1st in the Mike and Sarah Gotcha Theater, located in Trey Hearn Building on campus. Quote, parenting today is difficult, and finding a line between forcing our beliefs on our children and allowing them to discover their own belief is even more difficult, end quote, said director Talon Besson, an associate professor in the Department of Theater and Dance. Quote, this play explores that blurry line and asks some tough questions, but as one of the characters in the play says, we don't always have the answers. We just have to keep listening. When it comes to portraying the character of Alex in this performance and what it portrayed, covering things like motherhood and the difficult circumstances that comes into terms with, what part of her journey resonated the most with you as an individual, or even stepping into that character?
I think the part that resonated most with me was trying to fit in a box that doesn't necessarily have to be fit in.
In terms of the approach in which you went into trying to play this character, right, and obviously stepping into the role as an actress and even an actor, what was kind of the approach you had into mind and trying to portray a parent that doesn't really have it all figured out? I'm sure that's difficult, but what was the most difficult about portraying that character on stage? What would you say was the hardship that you really had to deal with when trying to bring that to a theater play?
I guess the most difficult would be being a mother, because I've never been a mother before, and I think that really helped me because I don't know how I would be in that situation. And
and to pitch it to Philip for obviously playing, the character of Greg. Greg possesses such a strong identity, and trying to play that is incredibly difficult. Trying to play this, not necessarily an antagonist, but someone that to many would be considered the antagonist of this play, or even the early release of the movie. In terms of playing this character, in terms of getting in the element of this character, what would you say was the most difficult part about playing this? And if you were in if you were in this character, how would you navigate, your circumstances differently?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, he is kind of in some parts portrayed as the antagonist. It's just sort of his like mannerisms and the way he approaches situations and stuff like that. Necessarily wouldn't be the way I would necessarily take it. So I do think I would take some situations a little bit differently, but I do also believe that in some cases that he does have the right approach. He does have, obviously he wants the best for Jake, and he has the right intentions, but also the way he goes about it may not be the best way.
Yeah, and obviously I know we kind of talked about that a little bit loosely, but the challenges you faced stepping into the role and trying to play a character, trying to play a father who is trying to do everything right and seemingly is doing everything they can within their ability to do things right. How do you step into a role like that? How do you prepare for a role like that, where really that the audience is going to look at you maybe a bit negatively, or maybe even, like I mentioned earlier, like a little bit of an antagonist to the story, to the plot. Meanwhile, it's just a person doing whatever they can, and that speaks on our humanity, that speaks on what we do, that speaks on our efforts, and the fact that we don't all have the answers. In fact, none of us really have the answers. It's just stepping through the motions. Stepping into that and trying to get in the headspace of, I know this is a person. and trying to really get into gripe of this is a person, this is a real person. Was this role specifically different from you comparatively to your past theater experience? Was this a new type of role to step into?
I would say so. This is definitely something. This is definitely a challenge. Just the fact that obviously I've never been a father before, but I do also know that a lot of fathers, they're a little underrepresented at sometimes. So I also took that into consideration. I also kind of took this role knowing that Greg isn't the best father that he could be, or even the best husband he could be, but I also took that into consideration of how I would approach the situation, and if I was thrown into that world that these characters are, that how would I approach it, and what would I do best with the script given to me.
Right. And obviously, Naraya, we've been kind of ignoring you, and I apologize for that. But to both of you, this is a beautiful story that really tackles modern parenting. I mean, and I don't know if any of you are wanting to have children or in the process of that, but it speaks on modern problems. This is a real issue. This is something where you as a parent, you have to dabble back between, is this the right decision? Is this not the right decision? It took an already impossible task and made it significantly harder. You obviously stepped into the role, into becoming this character, trying to embody the elements, the core heart, the beating heart of this person. For you, how would you describe that person's main intentions? Like, what is the beating, if you were to strip all the physicality aspects of the character and you looked at the beating heart on what that character stands for and their fears, their motivations, what would that look like for you, to these characters? And this is for both of you. So whoever is ready to start.
I think Alex's fear is having people put on and strive to look at her life and have her not think and be someone that she isn't. And I think her having that is also being put on for Jake, and she doesn't want that same thing to happen, but she's putting all of her emotions into what she fears most onto him.
So you almost feel like via trying to avoid the fear, it has manifested parts of it.
Yeah.
And then, in terms of your character, Philip, with, again, I think we've harped on it. This is a difficult character to play. Right. This is a difficult character to live. This is a difficult character because there's a sense of relatability in it. There's a sense of humanity in it, and seeing both sides, from the mom side, from the dad side, from even the child's perspective. You see bits of this. What would, again, to ask to her, what is the beating heart behind this character?
Yeah, I think. A lot of, and this also goes into real life, a lot of the way that parents, what they try not to do is have the same childhood that they had growing up. And I feel like that is portraying through both of us during this performance. But also, I do believe that Greg obviously wants the best of what's for Jake. But because he does see the psychological sides of a lot of people, given he's a therapist or a psychiatrist of the sort. The way he goes about it, he instead of taking a lot of action and physical action, he tries to do a lot of it in the mind and up top.
And like anything, we have stories, beginning, middles, and ends. Theater's no different to some extent. You have a main story point going into it, you have a climax point, etc. For you, what is that climax point in the theater performance? What is the moment where you go, there's a sense of relatability, or everything clicks, or the audience is like, oh, I get it now? To both of you, what would you say is the climax point of the theater performance?
Of this play specific? I think really after that last scene with us two and Judy, that very last scene where we really are starting just us as characters, and I believe the audience is putting these pieces together as in real time as we're doing it as well, of all these real problems that are happening and also newer problems that we are uncovering in real time.
And then, Naraya, what would you say is your climax point for the theater performance?
I think it would also be the same. I think for that moment, it's when Alex realizes that she feels that she's alone in this fight and that no one's seeing her point of view, and so she feels alone. And so having Greg and Judy go against her, it feels like her world is just shattering. She has no one else to lean on.
All right, and to have this perspective, to stand by this perspective on this is the right way to do something, and then to have everyone point to the counterintuitive, I mean, that's such a, not necessarily just a heartbreaking thing, but to have it come from such a familiar place, family. I mean, I'm sure that could be a really big gripe, and it would be really difficult for that character, and we see that through the performance. In terms of emotionally, for this theater performance and the two characters in which you play, for both of you, and individually we'll ask, what was your hardest emotional scene, whether that be prepping for it, whether that be, even if it's just a moment of, I don't know how to do this, I want to do this scene justice, what is the right motive, what is the right decision? For both of you, what was the most emotional, I guess, part of getting into this performance?
I think since Greg is such a, low down, chill, go with the flow kind of guy, that obviously portraying his anger is different from other people's angers. He's a gentle angry, which I think that's one of the hardest emotions you could portray. You can portray angry easy, but putting angry out in a gentle way, and not even angry as in a bad way, but angry out of love, that's probably one of the hardest.
And Naraya?
I think the hardest part for me was trying not to make her out to be an angry person, because she has lots of moments where she has the right to be angry, but she's holding it in because she doesn't want everyone to perceive her that way. I think that was the hardest part, but I think the most emotional I had to get was definitely in the fight with Greg and Alex. It was, like I said before, her realizing that maybe Greg is not on her side. She feels like she's alone and she has no one else to lean on.
Which, I mean, imagine that coming from your own partner, right? That feeling of having having a foundation, having stability, and then having that stability rocked at a given notice. One thing I do want to touch on with you, Philip, you mentioned that it was difficult for you to portray quiet anger, right? Because it's a lot different from, I think, more of a theatrical, this is, it's less body language, more subtlety and tone of voice, shift of emotion. Was there anything specific you had to relearn or learn to kind of, because you might catch yourself, this isn't the emotion I really want. Was there a moment whenever you were prepping for this performance where you thought, I think this is too much or this is too little, or what was your process kind of navigating that subtlety?
Yeah, obviously it was a lot of trial and error through rehearsals and stuff like that. But most of the time, I don't know. It sounds very cliche, but I kind of just went with my instincts. My body would have a natural reaction, and most of the time I would go with that, and then most of the time it would turn out to be probably the correct way. But also just how I spoke, probably just the way the dialect and the pronunciation and the all the intentions behind the words. Every sentence has a different action behind it, whether that's to antagonize or to target or to plead or whatever behind that. Just finding those verbs that are behind each sentence, but also portraying it as quiet anger.
And then did you happen to have a process like that similar? You know, was there a lot of trial and error in trying to step into this from an emotional perspective, or you know, what was your individual process for stepping into the role?
It's very similar. I went with my intuition. Like, what would I do in this scenario? How would I feel with this? Yeah, I think that's overall. Like, if it didn't feel right, what would I do to change that?
Mm-hmm. And then to both of you, moving in, when you first started learning the choreography, kind of getting involved in this, how was it actually working together? Did you guys workshop together? Was it kind of a lot of individual one-on-one and then kind of meet up the day of for a rehearsal? What was your process working together, you know, whether that be for the role's sake, whether that be, you know, what was kind of that process like for both of you?
Right. Well, this is the first time we've ever performed together. I think, to be honest, like, first week of rehearsal was the first time I like had a full conversation with Naraya. But outside of rehearsals, we would get together either now and then, and with some other cast members, just to go through lines, to run through them. Because I think the best way to rehearse is, like, you already have your lines memorized. That way you can really be in the moment. And
right.
If, say, there's intuition that comes up, you're able to go into that a little bit more deeper rather than forgetting your line and calling line or whatever that may be. But yeah, it was mainly working outside of rehearsal, learning our lines, stuff like that.
What about you?
I don't think I have a different answer.
Okay. And then in terms of stepping into the role, not necessarily emotionally, but physically, getting the roles itself, you know, what drew you to these roles? Was there an emotional pull in which you were like, this is what I want to do? Or it can be as honest as there was an opening and I took it. Either or.
Go first.
Okay, so we had to read this play in script analysis, and I loved Alex. I felt like I could do a lot with her, and I knew that I really, really wanted to delve into her character and try my hardest to give justice to who she is as a person.
I think for me, at least, obviously I'm trying to audition for every single opportunity I can get, but after I got a callback for this and I started like really reading the material and going into it a little bit more depth, I kind of like got a little bit more attachment to it. But it also started like to open my eyes, like this piece is just very real. It's a very life. It's the closest thing to nonfiction that fiction can be. And also just the fact that, what if this happened to my own child? Like, how would I react? And I think going into that with that mindset also, it really helped me understanding. But yeah, I think just starting off needing something to do, and then once I actually dove into the material, it started to stick with me.
Okay, so there was a slow emotional kind of, okay, I'll just see what this is, and oh, you know, I really sense a relatability to this. Yeah. I'm pulled to really try my best to bring this piece to life.
Right.
In terms of, which I'm sure we have kind of loosely talked about, because I mean we talked about the climax of things of the performance. Was there a specific scene that you really were like, this I'm looking forward to this? Was there ever a moment for either of you for those two scenes, or for any scene?
I don't know why. I really liked the scene 3, the waiting room scene. Maybe it was because I was able to read some magazines, but I don't know why. I just think like the text in that one, and also just how we were able to play off of each other in that scene just worked out really well.
Mine would be scene 9, just because I like a good I thought it was just fun to do.
Was that, because I'm not familiar with it, is that like just was that like a kind of a marital spout dispute, or
Yeah.
what type of scene was that?
Well, it was after the argument with Judy in her office, and after that, Alex went to the hospital and miscarried her child. Spoiler, sorry. And then they came back to their house, and Alex she feels defeated. She lost another child. She feels like she lost her husband. She feels alone, and everyone's just going against her.
And then, we talk a lot about the acting, we talk about that, but let's also talk about the audience for a minute. In terms of if you had an ideal emotion or an ideal, I guess, sentence that you would want to leave, you would want to imprint on the audience when they saw you, beginning, middle, and end, what emotion would you want them to feel when they left that theater? Or maybe it's a word, maybe it's a sentence, but what did you want them to feel whenever they left that story? And then whoever's writing.
Maybe reflection, or even self-reflection. Just because I know I talked to some of my friends that came and saw the piece, and they said, "Oh, it was actually better than I thought it was," and they also said that it really just opened up their eyes, and they on how real and serious a situation like that could actually be. So.
And then do you have anything?
I think what I would like for the audience to have was to believe in yourself and to trust yourself, because no answer is the right answer, but if it's hurting someone, to change.
Well, thank you all, first of all, so much for taking time out of your day, because I know y'all are busy, and thank you all for talking about it. It's been awesome having you on.